WTBR FM Pittsfield.
Welcome to Ham on WTBR, the all-inclusive ham radio show for hams and non-hams alike. Be part of the show. Contact us on www.facebook.com/HamJamTV. And now the hosts of the show, Peter and Jessica. Ham on.
Morning, everybody.
And good morning from Berkshire County. This is Ham on WTBR FM. We got a big show today.
How's it going today with everybody, huh?
In studio with us, we'll have her on in just a few minutes, is Marcia Forde, KW1U, the section traffic manager for Massachusetts. We'll have her on in just a few minutes. So we're going to go quickly into the news. Quickly. I'm sure you all heard about this. This is kind of, you know, that the Facebook thing about the Area 51.
Oh, yes.
It's been, since July. This is our top story.
Yes.
And
I can't believe it's wormed its way into ham radio. It's wormed its way into every other community.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, it's a Facebook event urging attendees to storm Area 51 on September 20th. It started as a joke and then became a national phenomenon, swelling to over 2 million RSVPs. The prank quickly garnered the attention of both the U.S. military and the rural communities that live near Area 51 in rural Nevada. The event's founder has disassociated himself with the event out of fear that logistics will overwhelm whoever shows up in the desert. The Nye County Sheriff's Office confirmed already in a video statement that they had picked up and arrested the first wave of Naruto runners.
Oh, jeez.
So,
oh, no.
Naruto.
It started with my anime. Oh, Lord, help me now.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Naruto is an anime. and
Yes, it is. It's an anime based off a boy that has a fox demon sealed inside of him. Lord, help me now. And because the running is that the arms are behind you when you run. So that's where they kind of got the idea from. But, oh, my dear sweet Lord, have mercy, help me now.
Yeah, and the two young men that were arrested were from the Netherlands. Of course, they are YouTubers, of course. They made it within 3 miles inside the Air Force Base property. So this is coming from the Public Information Coordinator for the Nevada section of the ARRL. Amateur radio operators have been deploying since Tuesday, September 17th, in advance of the gathering in Rachel, Nevada. Population, by the way, 54. Known as Storm Area 51, while the music festival Alien Stock has moved to downtown Las Vegas, the Storm Area 51 movement is going to take place with very little infrastructure in Rachel. The Lincoln County Sheriff, Carrie Lee, and the Emergency Manager, Eric Holt, activated the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, ARES, in Lincoln, Clark, and Nye counties. Amateur radio operators, have you're not an amateur radio operator, have began to set up stations.
Throw my 2 cents here. Come on
began to set up stations and placing several portable repeaters and link stations in the areas of Alamo, Hico, Tickaboo Valley, as well as Rachel to support the event. The goal is to provide timely and accurate communication to the incident command so that the appropriate reaction can be taken. The ham operators will be prepared to dry camp that is being fully self-contained for the duration of the deployment, which is expected to run through Sunday, September 22nd. Meetings are taking place in advance of the event to continually update the ARES plan to ensure that all operators are prepared as well as can be expected. The trick to the event is to prepare for the known unknown, how much power, food, water, and fuel and other items will be needed to sustain the ham operators for the duration of the event. Given the level of participation is only an estimate. Traveling through remote areas where there is no internet and no cell phone coverage is an incumbent to maintain voice communication with the command post for accidents. can occur involving life-threatening instances regardless of the eventual number of attendees. Amateur radio operators are often the first to provide critical and timely information. This event demonstrates the commitment of amateur radio operators to provide communications when needed. In addition to the hams in the event area, Clark County Aries members will be staffing the Clark County Emergency Communication Center to monitor the event. The ECC is an area with a full suite of amateur radios, including HF, UHF, VHF, and packet, along with a full complement of radios used for state and county communications. And that brings us to our topic of our show. We're going to go to other quick news, but the topic of our show today is NTS and traffic handling and
of course.
all that good stuff. So we'll go over to Jesse for some news.
Hey guys, how you doing? Let me see. Starting 9 a.m. September 20th through the 29th, and ending at 11 p.m., there will be a special event to honor Oscar, not the satellite, but an actual person. The special event call sign is November 1 Oscar. The event is called the Hammond Century and was named after a staff member of the AARL. Sorry about that. On September 25th, Oscar Norris, who they're hosting the event for, the W4OXH, he'll be 102 years old. God bless him. The event will be active on 2 meters, 146 megahertz, 70 centimeters for 40 megahertz, and DMR. So for those hams that are listening, there you go. There's an event going on for you, and here is the thing. Oscar is totally blind, and he does ham radio. There are a lot of blind hams that go ahead and are into ham radio. It's not really that hard to do. Hey, more power to him. Let me see. Most of the time he can be found on 444.45. W4CQ repeater of the Charlotte Amateur Radio Club. That's where he's usually found. So for hams that are looking to go ahead and do that, there you go. And I got that for you. And now back over to Peter with more news, if there is more news.
All right, the propagation report real quick. The solar activity continued at very low levels. Under a spotless solar disk, no Earth-directed CMEs were observed. For you non-hams, just worry about the sunspot numbers, which are 0. The solar activity is expected to be at very low levels on the 18th and the 20th. The solar wind, which the hams understand, and everybody, and shortwave listeners, and they all understand it. The non-hams, not so much. Solar wind speeds averaged around 400 kilometers per second, with a slight increase to near 400.
Although there might be some non-hams that are into astrology that might know.
Astronomy.
Don't, leave me alone. I'm having a day. I have no coffee. Leave me alone.
With a slight increase to nearly 450 kilometers per second by period's end. The geometric field was mostly quiet with isolated active periods between 1700 and 0300 UTC. Back to Jess if you have any other news for us.
Yeah, I do. Oh my goodness, it's one of those days. Like I said, working on no coffee, Wonder Bar. North Korea is testing DMR on the ham radio bands. Wow, this is nuts.
It's DRM.
DRM.
And what
sorry.
DRM is a digital.
I read it backwards. Leave me alone. I'm dyslexic.
And what DRM is a digital form of shortwave.
Ah,
not as good as not as good as the analog form, but whatever. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that to me. I'm like, wait a minute. I know what DMR is. That's something totally different. DRM, not really. Radio World reports North Korea has returned to digital radio broadcasting after an absence of 2 years. Interesting. I wonder why. The latest digital radio Monterey, I'm guessing. Yep. Shortwave transmitting will begin in mid-August. The country has had a period of DRM broadcasts for many years, and it's gone clear this time. However, whether current series of transmissions will soon end or be the start of regular service. So they've been on and off for a while. Nobody has any idea if they're going to continue to do it or if they're just going to say, screw it, I'm not going to do it anymore. Nobody actually knows what is going on. Hey, what do you expect? It's North Korea. They're not going to tell us anything. Thus far, all the latest test transmissions have taken place on 350, 60 kilohertz. I have no idea where that would be.
Yeah, the amateur radio bands. They're broadcasting in our allocated bands.
Yeah, and it says right here, which is actually for amateur radio use. According to radio enthusiasts in the region, in North Korea, the signal has been very clear and very audible, so they're doing something right. Kind of gets me a little confused as to why they want to. Don't they usually cut themselves off?
Yeah, we don't know what ulterior motives they have, but they're broadcasting in the amateur bands instead of in the broadcast AM shortwave bands. And that's the problem. All right, we will be right back with our guest and our guest over in the other corner, and one NHT who's here.
Yeah, he's kind of hiding a little bit.
We will be back right after this break.
You're listening to Ham On WTBR. I'm sorry for the delay. Like I said, no coffee.
WTBR radar weather for the Pittsfield area. Frost advisory in effect from 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. EDT Thursday. Today, partly sunny this morning, then clearing. Patchy fog this morning. Highs in the mid-60s. Northeast wind around 5 miles per hour. Tonight, clear. Areas of frost with patchy fog after midnight. Lows in the mid-30s. East wind around 5 miles per hour in the evening, becoming light and variable. Weather forecasts for WTBR FM are provided by the National Weather Service.
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed.
You think you know what radio is, but there is a radio you may not have yet discovered. Amateur radio, or as it is often called, ham radio. You can talk to the world.
Hey Yoshi, you're my first contact with Japan.
Help when disasters strike.
The Hurricane Emergency Net is now open for priority traffic.
Or make friends worlds away.
G'day mate, beautiful day here out in Australia. I tell you what, the waves are
beautiful. Say hello to the world via amateur radio. The ARRL, the National Organization for Amateur Radio, can teach you how. Visit helloradio.org and say hello to ham radio.
Hi, this is Ozzy Osbourne. For many years, you know I've had a drink problem, and I'm trying to battle that problem every single day. But one thing I don't drive my car when I'm drinking. I get someone to drive me. Do not drink and drive. It's the stupidest thing. If you drink, just don't drive. Not only are you going to hurt yourself, you may hurt some other person, and you wouldn't want that on your conscience, would you?
A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed.
And we're back to Ham On
Hey guys, welcome back.
WTBR FM with us in studio, and you gotta love her. She drove all the way from the eastern end of the state to be here.
Oh, thank goodness.
We have Marcia Forde, KW1U, who is the section traffic manager. I promoted you, the section traffic manager for
tongue-tied.
Massachusetts, and also in the corner, which nobody can see, our friend Jason, who I'm not even going to pronounce the last name because it just doesn't happen. N1NHT.
My last name is Fostier.
There you go.
He's here as well. So let's get to let's do this. Marcia, thank you for being here, especially to drive across the state to do our little show here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, would you?
Well, I'm. What can I say? I've been. I was originally from Ohio, and through various means, I migrated to Massachusetts in 1968. I had no association with ham radio until 1973.
Wow.
I have a son. My oldest son was in middle school. And in those days, the town of Concord offered summer school courses for kids to keep them busy. Practice I regret stopped shortly after that. But anyway, there was a ham in Concord who taught Morse code to the middle school kids in summer school. And my son thought that sounded interesting, so he and some of his friends took this course. And ham also taught them a little bit of basic electronics and FCC regulations so that they could get their novice license. That was the entry-level license at that time. So he got on the air. We got some very basic, I think we spent $135 on equipment.
Oh, wow.
But he was able to get on the air, and he had fun talking to his friends and so forth. And meanwhile, trying to get his parents into ham radio, I'm sure, so he could get better equipment. But anyway, that's another story. So I tried off and on. At that time, we needed to know Morse code to get an FCC license. Only 5 words a minute, but that's a little harder than it seemed to me. And I stopped and started studying, and I'd get busy, and then I'd start again later on. And finally, by 1980, well, he had bought a car. He sold all his equipment to get a car for $500.
Oh, goodness.
And he was still in high school, and I wanted to try and keep him off the streets and back on ham radio. So that was my motivation. I decided I would put some money down and buy some equipment. And once I put my money down, I said, now I got to do it.
Oh, yeah.
So I put forth a bigger effort, and I went for my license, and I got it in 1980, finally. And got on the air at that time.
Nice.
So I spent the first year just having fun with it, making contacts, all on Morse code because the novice class license, so we couldn't get on voice at that time.
Oh, wow.
So, but, it was slow speed. But I remember one experience. My son was sitting with me, and I was working some people on CW and on 15 meters, which is a very long-distance band. And my son says, Mom, somebody's calling you. Well, they were calling on voice. They were calling my call sign on voice. I didn't even recognize it. I was used to hearing it on Morse code, but I didn't even recognize it on voice. But I had an interesting conversation with this man from South Africa. So it was had a lot of experiences working people all over the world. But my son had been into message handling. He checked into the nets in the area. And so I had some exposure to it. And after a year, I decided I would try. And I just started copying everything. My Morse code was sort of marginal because they were a little higher speed, but I would write everything down. I began to increase my code speed, and I also began to learn how nets were operated. and I finally get up the courage to check in. So that's how I initially got started, and checking into the nets is what encouraged me to upgrade my license so that I could have more privileges, get on voice, and get on other nets.
I can't believe you had to start on Morse code. I heard Morse code is extremely hard to get into.
For some people it is. I know my husband at the time, he wouldn't even learn. I mean, he was an electrical engineer, but he refused to learn code. For some people, it's very difficult. For me, it came fairly, once I learned it, it's now become a second language, and and it's no longer required to get a license now, which is good for some people, but we find a lot more people getting interested in it just because it's kind of cool. It's different. You can talk to people, and others don't know what you're saying. So it's kind of.
So going from making contacts and messaging, how did you get to where you are now? Is first tell us what the responsibilities are of section traffic manager. I'm sure because this is a ARRL level position. You were appointed by. Whoever the section manager was at that time. So how did you go from, I'm just going to take some traffic, to running half the nets in Massachusetts?
Well, I think the main job of section traffic manager is getting other people to do the work. And Peter's a prime example. So,
yes.
But how did I get there? Well, actually, I was section traffic manager back in the 80s. We had a section we had a section traffic manager then, Jim Hathaway, WA1TBY. He was well known in traffic circles, and Jim needed to go to work in the evenings for a while, for about 5 years. So he wasn't going to be around on the net. So he asked me. This was in '83. And so I said, okay, I've been checking into a lot of nets, so I knew the routine. So I worked as section traffic manager at that time. And Jim finally retired, and I said, you want your job back? He said, oh, sure. So that was it for then. But I went on to other things. I became involved in the upper level nets that encompassed greater areas, region nets and area nets, which incorporated the whole eastern seaboard. And eventually Transcontinental Core, or TCC, which connects the 3 areas of the country to exchange messages. And
holy crap!
So I've done that for quite a long time. I became a TCC director in 1984. But back in, and I had to go back and look because I said, what have I been doing it this time around? And I looked back in my computer and I said, 2011, and the section traffic manager at that time, Jim Ward, N1LKJ, he was trying to resign. His family situation was changing, and Phil Temples, K9HI, was section manager at the time, and he said, couldn't we get you to take that job? And I said, well, I have to get rid of a few other jobs I was doing because as TCC director, and I was also staff chair of the Eastern Area staff, which encompassed all the region and area net managers, TCC directors. So I found somebody to take over part of that, and so I took the job, and I'm still doing it since 2011.
Wow.
And what, for the people, for the listeners out there, especially our non-hams, what is the exact duties of a section traffic manager?
Well, I oversee the nets in the various areas of Massachusetts. I was in Massachusetts. We actually have 2 sections, ARL field sections, Eastern and Western Mass. And I got asked if I would also cover Western Mass. I actually live in Eastern Mass, although kind of near the border. And the Western Mass section manager said, oh, yes. Anyway, I oversee the nets. I make sure that the nets have managers who are actually doing the job.
Where are you going?
Where are you disappearing to, Peter?
I don't want to be here.
And make sure that training is going on, and the things we want to encourage people. And when new people check in, I try to keep in touch with them and see that there's training for the various nets. And I try to encourage the net managers to do some training. I keep records and keep our website, which is ema.arrl.org. It's available to anybody, and we have information there on both Eastern and Western Mass as far as the national traffic system is concerned.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of what I do.
There's a whole bunch of traffic we pass. On the official side, we have the radiograms and that, but Jason pointed out as we're doing this that there's a trivia traffic stuff. I guess passing traffic, any kind of traffic, is good training for our NCS people. So
trivia traffic can be really good because you have to think of how to condense the answer down to, the very short paragraph.
We'll get into some various messages here in a few minutes. Marcia, explain to the non-hams out there, because us hams, we've already had the training, the crash training course, and how this all works. But for the non-hams or the listeners that are sitting on the fence, this is Ham On, by the way, on WTBR FM. For the non-hams sitting on the fence, because this is getting more interesting week by week. Hopefully, we can get some more people here. What is the NTS, the National Traffic System, and how does it all work from getting messages from point A to point B?
The National Traffic System is a network that covers the whole United States, and we're able to, through a series of relays, get messages from point A to point B, no matter where they are. We also cover Canada, and we're branching out now into Europe and Asia, specifically Australia, New Zealand area. We have a system of nets that meet on a regular basis, a daily basis, most of them. And people can list a message there that they want to go, and it's picked up by a liaison station from one layer of net, from the local nets to the statewide nets to the regional nets and ultimately the area nets and so forth. So these messages are relayed through these various nets until they get to their final destination, where they can be delivered by telephone or even hand-delivered if necessary, when the systems are all down.
And this system worked very well in Hurricane Maria, the force of 50 that went to Puerto Rico. We got a lot, I think 7,000 health and welfare messages that left the island and went through NTS to various states to tell people, hey, we're okay, we're good. We survived.
No other means of communication was working at that time.
Everything was down. Cell phone towers was down, and the electrical grid was down, and the island was devastated. I haven't seen a lot coming out of the Bahamas. Have you seen a lot of H&W messages coming out of the Bahamas?
I've not seen. I don't think I've even seen any out of Bahamas. I remember out of Puerto Rico, which is surprising to me, but no, I haven't seen any.
And we pass a lot of traffic, and we can always use traffic handlers, especially because I'm assistant section traffic manager for Western Massachusetts, and we have a lot of check-ins and not a lot of people taking traffic. In fact, the only one really taking traffic is N1YCW, Bruce Pierce, who will be here next week for the show. But there's a lot of traffic going in. Like I said, we have the health welfare messages. We have what we plan routine messages, a lot of stuff K1OJO and NX9K. And Jason's pointed something out that the trivia, we even do trivia traffic. So Jason, real quick, if you want to tell us in a few words what trivia traffic is all about.
Well, should I do this in like a radiogram form with just
No,
5 by 5?
No, just kind of explain. Remember, we have a lot of non-hams listening to the show, going, "What are these people talking about?" So, kind of put it in very simple terms.
Yeah.
Trivia traffic is, well, there's this website, and I will give the website momentarily when I bring it back up. But you can go on and you can find these trivia questions that are in radiogram format. And you pick any question you want. They instantly put a random one up on the front page, but you can go through and choose any of these trivia questions, and you fill out a radiogram as you would passing any NTS traffic, and you put the answer, you send the answer to the person who left a question, and you send it over through the radio during a traffic net or whatnot. And the questions aren't hard. The point isn't to stump you in a question. The point of the whole thing is just to get you to fill out a radiogram and send it, just for the practice.
In order to generate traffic, pretty much.
Yeah, and it could just be simple questions. I was going to bring one up really quick, but I forgot. But their website was a long, drawn-out website, and I asked them to shorten it up for sharing purposes. So it's so they gave me a tiny URL, tinyurl.com. What is that? A / I think / trivia traffic, TRIVIA TRAFFIC, and you can just go there. And you can even put your own questions. When you post a question, you try to put it in radiogram, and you post it like a radiogram. So with your header and your information, so they can send it back to you, and then you put the question usually in the 5 by 5 format, 5 lines, Pete, help me with the word here. 5 words. Yep.
5 words per line.
5 words per line, so 5 across and 5 down. So
you forgot your training.
Yeah, so 20. Try to keep it within the 25-word thing, which.
Remember your training.
And Jason, yes, Jason is actually one of my backup NCS. He's a truck driver, folks.
When I have time.
When he has time in the area, he actually will run a net or two for me and pass some traffic for me while he's driving.
And when Echolink comes on,
when
I'll be able to do that
back
again.
on, which the Echolink will be back on early next month. There's a couple of things I have to order for it, but try to do this with no money. So thanks, Jason.
Wait, no money? I give you money.
I need $30 for my hard drive.
Where'd you get your radio from?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the radio
donation from NHT Transportation.
Donation from NHT Transportation. Okay, thanks, Jason. The big question, Marcia, is in this day and age of internet and YouTube. Well, not YouTube, but Skype and instant messaging. How important still is passing radio traffic through NTS?
Well, there's always the possibility, and it does happen, that infrastructure goes down. The internet is not available. Cell phones may be inoperable, whether the towers are down or whether they become overloaded. And people want to get a word about loved ones or friends and family. In amateur radio, a lot of amateurs are able to get on the air. Many amateurs have backup systems, battery, generator power, and so forth, even in an infrastructure being down. And hams are able to get messages through where very often the infrastructure is not. So we put ourselves out there. We're available to be called on as needed.
Just like what's going on in Nevada with the news at the top of the hour with Area 51, they're all out there. And the thing is that we can run portable. We can take batteries and throw antennas up, and we can operate anywhere. Hence Field Day.
I was gonna say, for non-hams that don't know, Field Day is when you guys, when hams go ahead and don't they train during that time?
Well, yeah, Field Day is a 24 operation.
To go on the go, that you're not always going to have a setup for a generator or something like that.
Field Day is a 24 operation where we go somewhere. No Bark, actually, No Bark didn't do one this year, but we go somewhere, we operate for 24 hours and make contacts. There's also points, if I remember, there's points because the section manager will send out actual traffic. You get points for that. You get points, I think some of the other NTS officials will send traffic.
You also get points that you're usually clubs set up an operation somewhere using a non-commercial power, but they can try to get points by making contacts over this 24-hour period. But they can, if they send a formal radiogram to your section manager or your section emergency coordinator, or you get points for that, and you get points for sending just regular radiograms to friends and family. You can send up to 10 messages and get, I believe it's 100 points for that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a good thing, and it's good practice for deployment in case something goes wrong. What was I going to say? I forgot. Marcia actually is in charge of a lot of nets, both on VHF and HF. She's in, she checks in the first region net, which is 3948 kilohertz at 245 and 415. But I fear with daylight savings ending, those times will be changing shortly. We also have the Eastern Area Net, which is, if you want to kind of explain what the Eastern Area Net is for our listeners.
Well, the Eastern Area Net is a wide area coverage net, and we have check-ins from all the way from Florida to Maine and out as far west as Michigan and Ohio. And they are liaisons from the various regions. In the Eastern area, we have four or five regions. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8, 5 regions of liaisons from these different regions, different parts of the Eastern area. Check in and exchange traffic there. And we have, this is on 40 meters, so we have fairly good coverage on 40, except when propagation is not available.
Oh, yeah, I've heard.
And then we have fun trying to pass messages through a series of relays, and usually that works.
Yeah, I've heard you trying to pick up the traffic on there one time, and propagation just was not working with him today. He could barely hear.
But if he hears somebody, we can usually, sometimes it takes more than one relay, but usually through relays we can get a message to him for anywhere in the New England area.
You're listening to Ham on WTBR FM. And speaking of that, it's really, really funny. We've talked off air before about this, but when I was up at Danforth Ave here in Pittsfield, I never heard you at all. Never. Ralph and N1LAH and K1 UAF would be in there. It's like KW1's in there, KW1U's in there. I never heard her. I move over to where I am now, which is out in the middle of almost nowhere. Out in the woods. And Marcia's one of the strongest stations that come in now. Between Marcia and Betsy, everybody else.
Could change the area have changed propagation?
Propagation is a very tricky thing. You could be, and I'm sure Marcia will agree and Jason will agree, you could be in one spot and you could hear everything. You move 5 feet, you're not hearing anything.
Well, I do that with my tractor trailer. I just move 5 inches with my tractor trailer, and I get, oh, wow, there I am. Wow, I didn't hear me for a second. Yeah, so I mean, I'm in my tractor trailer, and I talk on the radio, and you can't hear me, and then I'll just move the truck forward like 5 inches, and then everyone hears me.
Propagation is a really, really tricky thing, but even for you shortwave listeners, you can hear us. We're on 3948 kilohertz at 245 and 415 for the first region net, and you'll probably be hearing my mouth today since I have to NCS it when I get out of here. And then EAN is 7222. If there's good propagation, if there's not, we kind of have to play with it. But there's more than just EAN. I mean, Marcia, you're more than just in charge of just handling EAN and FRN. You've got 2 meter nets, the heavy hitters traffic net. You've got How many nets do you think that you get? I mean, I know I get reports and give you reports from WMEN and Cycle 1, Cycle 2 of Western Mass, but how many nets do you really have to deal with every week?
Well, we have, of course, in Western Mass, you have those 3 nets that you just mentioned. And then in Eastern Mass, well, there's another one actually that's in the Western Mass section. There's a Central Mass net that's on the Paxton repeater in Worcester County. And then in Eastern Mass, we have the heavy hitters, which is a wide area because they link a number of repeaters. And plus, they have Echolink availability, so some people can come in from as far away as Florida, Western Mass, and so forth, into the heavy hitters traffic net. And then we have one on the Boston repeater. And we have one down on the Cape and Islands. So there are a lot of 2-meter nets. And then we have, of course, our section net that's on 3978 kilohertz that runs just Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. That's a voice net. And then we have also a CW net for those who enjoy CW. And we run at a fairly comfortable speed, but we will slow down for anyone who wants to try it. Slow down to whatever speed you check in. But that's on 3565 kilohertz at 7 p.m. And it is a section-wide net, so we invite people, CW people, to check in there.
Now, we've been talking a lot about phone nets, voice nets, but there's way more to NTS and passing traffic than just phone nets, either on the repeaters or on HF. There's digital modes, there's packet, there's CW. Why don't you, would you like to tell us a little bit about those modes?
Well, we talked a little bit about the CW. We also run PackTour and Packet using computers and terminal node controller. The Packet network runs 24/7. Let's see, one of the advantages of that, the digital network, we cover the country. We have area hubs. I run a hub for New England and also the gateway to Europe. I conduct a really regular daily schedule with a station in Germany, and we can send ham-to-ham traffic.
That has to be one heck of a skip.
It's actually ham-to-ham traffic because we don't have third-party agreement with most European countries. But anyway, we also have local outlets on what we call packet radio, which is on VHF, 2 meters. But that's a little problematic getting messages from one part of the state to the other. But it's available, accessible on HF or VHF. And as I say, it's nationwide. It runs 24/7. And we can handle large volumes of traffic. If you have, say, you're in a shelter and you may have hundreds of messages to go out, the computer just keeps pushing them out. It doesn't care how many there are.
Yeah, there's a lot of modes, and I believe firmly as every amateur should be a member of ARES, every amateur should be able to take traffic. I know here in Pittsfield, we have the 2 cycles of our Western Mass Traffic Net, Cycle 1 at 10 a.m., which of course we're missing because I won't be back in time, but Cycle 2 at 1 p.m. The downside here is we're getting a lot of traffic. I have God knows how many on my board, but we're not getting a lot of people to pass traffic.
I have no. I know you have like a book. What is called a book?
Yeah,
I have no idea what a book is.
Which I think was it W1HAI now when we get on heavy hitters. Traffic net causes east-west connection because it seems like me and Marcia are always passing traffic back and forth on the heavy hitters traffic net. But we get 15, 20 check-ins average every day, and 3 people are taking traffic. And I know we need more people to take traffic, and we can give out. I've done training courses on K1 FFK. We used to have, I haven't really had time to get the RAG TuneNet in there, the Newcomers Roundtable, because of everything else. I got more projects than you can believe other than doing this once a week, trying to get my repeater up, trying to get better antennas up. So because of 80 meters, which keeps setting off my smoke detectors. But that's a story
Yeah.
in and of itself.
Yeah, it's kind of hard when you're trying to communicate and you're hearing evacuate.
Right.
Does it actually say that evacuate?
Yeah, our smoke detector actually says evacuate. And thanks to Jason and One NHT, I've got a new radio that's going to be on Echolink as soon as I order like a new hard drive. My hard drive quit in my computer, so I need a new hard drive and I need a new cable
it's like 13 years
to
old.
Connect to the radio. But anyway, we need more traffic handlers. We get a lot of check-ins on both cycles, but we don't have the people to take traffic. So when we come back from the break, we're going to discuss, hopefully, how we can get more people, besides listening to this radio station, more people into traffic handling.
You're listening to Ham On and WTBR. We'll be back in a few minutes.
WTBR radar weather for the Pittsfield area. Frost advisory in effect from 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. EDT Thursday. Today, partly sunny this morning, then clearing. Patchy fog this morning. Highs in the mid-60s. Northeast wind around 5 miles per hour. Tonight, clear. Areas of frost with patchy fog after midnight. Lows in the mid-30s. East wind around 5 miles per hour in the evening, becoming light and variable. Weather forecasts for WTBR-FM are provided by the National Weather Service.
Can you imagine a world without children? A world without their smiles or their laughter. A world where children don't play or sing or dream or imagine.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we can't imagine a world without children. That's why we're working every day to find cures for diseases that strike down children everywhere. Diseases like cancer, pediatric AIDS, and sickle cell. And we won't stop until every child is cured and every disease is defeated. Because we can't imagine a world without children. Can you?
Finding cures, saving children. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. To learn how you can help, call 1-800-931-0800 or log on to our website, stjude.org.
In the early hours after the tsunami, it was ham radio that was on the air, saving lives. When Florida was ripped by hurricanes, the hams were there. In the critical moments after the attack of 9/11, it was the hams who coordinated emergency messages. When disasters strike, the hams are ready. Ham radio works when other communications don't. To learn how you can become a ham radio operator, call the ARRL, the National Association for Amateur Radio, at 1-800-326-3942.
The Berkshire's only rock station, 89.7 WTBR-FM, Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
And welcome back to Ham On here in WTBR-FM. We were talking during the commercial break. Jason mentioned the public service events. We do public service events, and we were talking about the Pumpkin Patrol, which we don't do here in Western Massachusetts. We do it in Eastern New York. And I know some of the broadcast of this radio station goes into ENY. But yeah, public service event. I mean, we don't really pass traffic at the public service events, but we do that stuff. I mean, getting in the ham radio, there's a lot you can do. We're talking with Marcia Forde, KW1U, who's the section traffic manager for the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts, who keeps me very busy when I'm not doing this show.
No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure.
What would you tell our listeners, especially the ones sitting on the fence, the inspiring hams going, this show gets more interesting every week. Maybe I should go take a test about getting into either, public service areas, or especially what we're talking about today, the NTS and radiograms and passing traffic. What would be your suggestion, and what would you tell them if some of them were actually sitting in this studio with us right now?
Well, a lot of people are thinking amateur radio is something of the past, with internet and cell phones and whatnot and instant gratification. Perhaps thinking that amateur radio, is that still around? But it most definitely is. There's a lot of fun things to do in amateur radio, and Of course, I'm partial to one of them, and that is the message handling. But we do public events as well, public service, and we feel that even what we're doing is messaging is a public service to the public. But we do encourage people to investigate, look at the various activities, and hopefully choose public service. It's one of the reasons that amateur radio exists, according to the FCC. It's one of the things that allow us to have so many frequencies that we have and so many opportunities. But traffic handling, of course, is my thing, and I found it made a lot of friends all over the country through this, and a feeling of gratification that we have a service that's available whenever it's called upon to use.
Exactly.
So I would encourage people to get more information about amateur radio and certainly get involved, and those who are already involved, look into the message handling and public service events. It's a great activity and very worthwhile, and gets you prepared for any emergencies that may come up.
And I figured this out through the 3 or 4 years that I've been doing this, that I think, I guesstimate 90% of amateur radio operators started off on 27 megahertz on the CB bands. Like Marcia stated earlier, you don't need Morse code or anything anymore. It's a simple 35 question test to get into, to get the ticket, to get the license, good for 10 years. But if somebody wanted to go for your job, and it's not me, assistant section traffic manager is just fine. But if somebody out there listening said, "Ooh, Marcia's got a cool job," how would one proceed to kind of get into what you're doing as far as section traffic manager?
Well, first thing is to get involved in traffic nets, learn all about it, learn how to do it, learn how to be in net control. Take on the job, volunteer, and you'll learn a lot. And ultimately, I'm going to decide I think somebody else ought to do this job. It's happened before. So just get all the experience you can, and one of these days you may be asked to do it.
And
it's true.
And this is actually an appointed position, because I know Marcia recommended me for ASTM, and then Ray, KB1 LRL, actually had to come out and say, "Go for it, nice job." But these are appointed positions through the ARRL, so the American Radio Relay League is kind of in this, and you kind of have to be a member. And where are some of the other qualifications if somebody wants to say, "Oh, we got some stuff that we can try to get into here. Maybe I can go for Ray's job, or go for Marcia's job, or you can go for my job too." But you have a couple. Well, you had a couple of assistant section traffic managers that you don't appoint per se, but you recommend. I mean, you had Greg, who. You can, talk a little bit about Greg, who is your Eastern Mass Assistant Section Traffic Manager, who is Silent Key.
For people that don't know what Silent Key means, it means he had passed away.
Yeah, when amateur radio operators passed away, we call them Silent Keys. In fact, one of my friends from Maine Potato Net was SK after Monday, KC3 JBS, Bob, who we just talked to on the Maine Potato Net on Saturday, who's now Silent Key. But
oh my goodness, really?
Yeah, you don't appoint the assistant section traffic managers. You make recommendations.
The second section manager in a section a position, he does the appointing. Because he's appointed by the ARL and authorized to make these appointments. But I recommend certain people. I can appoint net managers as section traffic manager, but the section traffic manager and assistant job are actually appointed by the section manager, as are various other field appointments. But the thing is to just get the experience and take part and do what you can to help Greg started checking into our nets about, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. Very active. He was handling traffic. He finally became the net manager position of the Boston area, Boston repeater net, the Eastern Mass 2-meter net, became available, and he offered to help out with that, and he became a net manager. I appointed him. And then we didn't used to have an assistant section traffic manager official position, but that became available, and I asked Greg if he'd be interested in doing that, and he definitely was. So he is. Right now, I do not have an assistant section traffic manager in Eastern Mass. I'm looking around to see what's available, but
minutes left of the show. We did good. Marcia, thanks for being here. It was a pleasure. And for anybody who wants to traffic handle, Cycle 1 and Cycle 2 of the Western Mass Traffic Net. Cycle 1 is 10 a.m. Monday through, 7 days a week. And Cycle 2 is 1 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then 7 days a week, too. You
brain farting over there, brain farting.
Too much stuff. And I'm not net manager for...
And you have coffee. What is your excuse? You have coffee. I have no coffee, and I'm over here brain farting, man. What the heck?
And I'm net manager for Cycle 1, and Bruce and 1YCW, who will be here next week to talk about the Fall Foliage Parade, is net manager for Cycle 2. But I'd like to thank Marcia, KW1U, for driving almost 3 hours for an hour show. And Jason and 1NHT for
thanks for having me in, Pete.
For being on the radio today. This will be rebroadcast Thursday, 10:30 or 10 p.m. on Pittsfield Community Television, and we are simulcast.
You have to keep the schedule in mind.
And we are simulcast live right now as we speak. Personal appearance. Me and Jesse will be at the Alzheimer's Walk in Adams on Saturday, and that'll be at the Adams Visitor Center on 3 Husick Street in Adams.
And Jason's over here laughing for some reason.
From 7:30 a.m. to noon. Any last comments from anybody in the panel here, while we still have a couple of minutes?
No, I'm just glad I got to come hang out and check this out.
Yeah, this is a great place here at WTBR FM. You're listening to Ham On. Final thoughts, Marcia, on traffic handling and NTS and getting people into this.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to you, Peter, for taking on as net manager and all the traffic that you handle and all the nets and being my assistant. It's really appreciated. Peter's doing a great job. So anyone out here in this part of the state interested in getting involved, please get in touch with Peter. I think he's pretty easy to find. And it's a lot of fun. You make a lot of good friends, and it's a very rewarding experience.
What's your email, Pete? KD2JKV@ARRL?
Or KD2JKV@gmail.com. You can get me at Gmail. You can get me on Facebook. You can get me on Zello. You can get me through the Ham On Facebook page. And if anybody wants to be part of this show, www.facebook.com/HamJamTV. And Marcia, thank you for putting so much trust in what I do here in Western Mass. We didn't even have time to discuss the reports and everything that have to go in, but this is a really organized thing, and we need, especially me over here in Western Mass, need more traffic handlers. Bruce does a good job at passing traffic, and he takes everything that I give him. But we need more traffic handlers, and if you are a ham, and we got to wrap up here. But if you are a ham, K1FFK 146.91, and if you want to know more about traffic handling or passing traffic, get a hold of me, KD2JKV@gmail.com. This has been Ham on WTBR FM, and we will see you next week.
Have a good morning. And